Rona, how you doing? Good Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. So, yeah. So, no, I understand. It's always been the way that it's been in the 120 something years nobody fell off with it. But all it takes is once somebody says out loud, is everybody happy with that?
Godly did this.
No, nobody else has seen it as far as I can tell. I don't know what else you could do. I mean, any higher than that we can see. But
can people still see? I guess is my thought.
What?
I assume
So
you can see.
that's the challenge. But I talked to Tom about these guys, right? Yeah. So did you raise them? No, they haven't raised yet. So the thought is basically
they extended the railing up.
yes, right. That's basically what they did. So the issue is that it blocks. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
I'm trying to solve it.
You know the place. Just relax. Yeah. So basically, what I said to Tom was, because he asked me to paint the color or whatever it is, I said, yeah, or it seemed to me like if you're going to do it so that it just looks like it was intended to be one thing, do the whole thing. But I don't know if that's the whole thing.
I think staying here.
Tell him whatever you want. Yeah. But then I think basically if we raise, probably 2 feet or 3 feet, then it should make a big difference in terms of sight lines. But remember again, the reason we put that TV up there is for when we use the balcony, that has an image of what's on the camera. Right. So people can see, as strange as it is to be in the room, but they'll just, can't be opera.
All you need is one rim off this kid.
Oh, 100%. But my theory is.
It's been this way for 33 years.
But the kids are
But they're still
energetic these days. What are you about?
I know.
Do we know who has Cadillac for the TV video license?
Who's the what?
TV video
You're the only person I know who has a Cadillac. I don't.
I have a cat.
Somebody put the gloves on.
No, not mine.
I haven't quite made Cadillacs test.
No,
That's why I always know it's from it.
Test 1, 2.
I'm sorry, I have a constant pain, like, just really need an MRI to my back duct. Yeah.
Since she was a little kid, since she was 30 years old.
Right by your car and everything. Thank you so much.
Then it comes right off what I have to do.
I didn't know that. She carried people. Oh, I didn't know I was a lady. I didn't see.
Yeah.
Like comes in. I told him, you understand that, and I never knew it until now. Like, let's say $10,000. Then you don't have to declare that decision. So that makes sense. I don't know. Listen, I do my own taxes. I'm on TurboTax. For 6 years I've done it. Because I get spent, I get. No, I'm okay. And the funny thing is, I did it in February. I did my own taxes. So I'm looking and I'm going like, I call up the number, I have to see when did I get the rebate? They have no idea who I am. Right? So today I get an email from TurboTax. When am I going to send my taxes in? Oh my God, I never sent it in. I'm losing it. I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Hello.
How you doing, young man? Oh, no, the summer. We were just discussing.
We're just discussing age.
See how many people. It'll be big. I got a birthday coming up in a couple of days.
Couple of days.
Makes sense.
June.
It'll be 82.
Oh, to be 82 again.
That's what I said to him. I said, I'm older than you.
Just having difficulty with it.
I'm closer to you. I'm a little bit older.
You're in great shape. Probably you did get long enough that you were once a young person.
Yeah, when we first met.
All those older. All those older.
Oh God, yes, that must be infuriating.
They've added
I don't
quite a few
know. I don't have it.
Yes, oh, you know that's the basis of
They actually have one with
Oh,
that
yeah.
back there.
People talk about it.
Me.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I'm fighting it though.
'Cause, yeah, most other people would think of that as a blessing, but people have it.
No, that's
like curse.
that is
No,
100%.
I don't want to be on it.
Bilam Balak, tie it in there.
Do you give any teaching stuff at the gig, or
At the what?
like if your new position, they expect you to teach stuff at all, or like the teaching?
I'll be doing like some religious school stuff. And
As you should do it however you do. But I have like a running note in my thing. Anytime I get an idea for a sermon or anything like it, even if it's just a half-baked idea or an article that I read, I just save it right in there.
oh,
Because you just never know. And then come my
Yeah.
holidays, I go back through that and I'm like, okay, this might have been an idea. This may have been no
Yeah.
sense at all.
yeah, I'll probably do that like Bilam Balak, the blessing and curse.
Yeah.
Turns to
That's
curse.
exactly. That's a very
It's
good
definitely where I put that. Yeah.
All right.
Guess, yeah,
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Cantor Kevin.
Shabbat shalom.
Great to have you back.
Thank you.
And almost happy Purim to everyone. What's that? Pointing to it. Yes, no, for sure. I was wondering because I walked in. Those that are not aware of the conversation you've walked into the middle of, you may have noticed one thing changed from last week, which is we went back to our official red, which is high holidays is usually when you turn over to white, and other than that, you leave it alone. And so this was being repaired, which I think it seems to have been repaired nicely. Right, to go over the top. Yes. I think it's probably a good idea. I think it's a good idea. Well, you know, this will be the discussion at Oneg Shabbat afterwards, everyone. We will consider the possibilities of how to cover the art. But no, look, you know, leave it to the rabbi to connect it to Torah, but this is basically what we've been doing for the last like 4 or 5 weeks in Torah study, is just reading about all of this stuff, the covering over the ark. So here we are, all these thousands of years later, having the same conversations. I think Jewish continuity happening right here, right now. I appreciate it very much. But nonetheless, I miss the white for sure, but it'll make us look forward to the high holidays in its own right. Okay, we'll talk more. But with that, I'll wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. And before we get started with our service, I'm going to invite up the Zaretsky family to honor us by lighting and blessing Shabbat candles. This Shabbat every year is certainly a hard one. The Zaretskys come to share this moment with us as they remember their son, their brother, their uncle, Jason. And so as I say every year, it is painful, okay? But we're here for you. When you light these candles, right, you light them every year. Every year, I've been here since he passed. Right? You bring him into this space, into your lives, and you share that with us. And it's truly very meaningful to me personally, and I know to all your friends here at the temple that you're with us. And as we've been continuing to do, lighting 2 sets of candles, one for us here in Sag Harbor, and of course those in still captivity who can't light Shabbat candles on their own. So Marilyn, I'll tell you what, I'll hold your, or I'll light, we'll save you from the weekly embarrassment that it's become for me, right?
He'll try to light the candle.
You know what?
It's the wax.
It's the wax, but I think now I realize I just need to certain amount of Shabbos perseverance. See, but at least now I know what to look for. That was the big difference. Once you see that wax melt off. I thank you. I was waiting for someone to compliment that I've made progress.
You really are improving.
It only takes
10 years.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chad b'fnei Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Marilyn. So we'll turn now to page 130, and we'll join Cantor Kevin as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat. Very top of the page, again, page 130. page 131.
ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותקל הארץ. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותקל הארץ. ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים, ומלואו. ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים, ומלואו. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותקל הארץ.
We'll turn now to page 132 at the very bottom, or Zarua.
Or Zarua, Vatzadik, V'yishrei Simcha. Or Zarua, Vatzadik, V'yishrei Simcha. Or Zarua, Vatzadik, V'yishrei Simcha. V'yishrei Simcha. Or Zarua, Vatzadik, V'yishrei Simcha. V'yishrei Simcha. Ya la la, ya 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 la la, ya la, ya la, ya la, ya la.
We'll turn now to page 134, Zamru Ladonai, at the very top of the page.
Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, b'chatzotzrot v'kol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, yiram hayam u'melo'o, tevel ve'yoshveva, beharot imcha uchaf yachad, harim yiranenu. לפני אדוני קיווה, לשפוט הארץ, לשפוט תבל בצדק, ועמים במישרים. ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושביה. נהרות עמך וכף יחד, הרים ירננו.
Now on page 135, Romamu, which is the last Hebrew paragraph in the middle of the page.
רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו להקודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו להקודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. להקודשו.
We'll turn now to Lecha Dodi on page 138. Again, page 138, beginning at the very top of the page.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Le'amor ve'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet ve'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor haberacha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, ומצאי מתוך ההפכה, רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. התנערי, לבשי בגדי תפתרתך עמי, על יד בן ישי בית הלחמי, קרבה אל נפשי גאלה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Yadadai, Bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Yadadai, Bnei Shabbat nekabela. התעוררי, כברך קומי אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Yadadai, Bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Yadadai, Bnei Shabbat nekabela. לא תבושי ולא תיכלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי, בך יחסו עניי עמי, ונפתעי רלתי לה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Yadadai, Bnei Shabbat יחכו כל מבעלייך, יסיס עלייך אלוהייך, כי משוש חתן על כלה, לך תודי לי כת כלה, ידנה ידנה ידנה, בני שבת מקבלה. לך תודי לי כת כלה, ידנה ידנה ידנה, בני שבת מקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, את אדוני תריצי, על ידי שבין פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה. לך תודי לי כת כלה, ידנה ידנה ידנה, בני שבת מקבלה. לך תודי לי כת כלה, ידנה ידנה ידנה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך תודי לי כת כלה, ידנה ידנה ידנה, בני שבת מקבלה. לך תודי לי כת כלה, ידנה ידנה ידנה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. We're now on page 140.
צדיק קטן מה יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה, שתולי בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עודנו בסיפה, ושיינים ורעננים יהיו להגיד, כי ישר אדוני צורי, ולא הבלעת בו.
Turn out of the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144 and will rise in body or spirit. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Amadi v'achirutei v'amlich malchutei b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala ba'gala u'vizman kariv ve'imeru. Amen. Yehesh shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam ul'almei almaya yitbarach.
יתברך וישתבח, ויתבר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשא בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בהמה, במהרו, אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. Please be seated. We'll turn together to page 149. We'll read together in English at the very top of the page. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים.
We'll read together now on the top of page 151, together in English. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery.
כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו,
אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Please join us on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ופומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's read together on the top of page 157.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught forever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. That there is a better place, a promised land. That the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. That there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. So we turn to page 158, Mi Chamocha, at the very top of the page.
Yaakov וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל 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 Israel.
For Hashkivenu tonight, let's read together in English on page 161, the second reading down from the top. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Hashkivenu, page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim Ushmor tziteinu ulboeinu l'chaim u'l'shalom me'atov v'ad olam Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. Amen. Turn now to page 162 at the very top of the page, Vashana.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם תשש ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת שבת ויהי נפש.
Invite us now to rise in body or in spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164. From that point on, we'll continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace, and when you're finished, if at the end you're still standing, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufiai tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Say shalom bimromav uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imenu amen. Say shalom say shalom aleinu ve'al kol ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומה ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
We'll turn now to page 371 as we offer our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. We'll begin by thinking of those in our community and connected to our community who we know are in need of that healing. Tonight we're thinking of Rachel Bat Marsha, Jay Tizer, Alan Weinstein, Judy Greenwald, Sue Wartor, Barbara Goldfarb, Abigail Blum, Betsy Tepper, Michael Klinghoffer, Ema and Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sylvia Devora, Bat Francis, Muriel Hirsch, Michelle Sawicki, Francis Kirschman, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Spicer, Barbara Kushner, David Kyle Klopman, Lorraine Davis, Kim Birnbaum, Deborah Block-Kroll, Sylvia Orn, Rachel Bat Ora, Josephine Getling, Lisa Levitin, Peretz Ben Shlomo, and Israel Ben Yitzchak. And for those that are with us here tonight in the room, if you have additional names to share, we'll start on this side and work towards the rear and this side, and just make sure to raise a hand in case you have names to share.
Frank London, Gary Rayner, Sidney Rayner, Curtis Bill.
Mike Erkowitz.
Sarah Newton's Eddie and Diana Mann.
Alan Franco, Aaron Besser, Robin Gold.
We'll join together now with Cantor Kevin on page 371. Of course, we'll invite those watching at home to add names of your loved ones as well. Just in the middle of the page, page 371.
Courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotzeinu mikol habracha lavotzeinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Now add our prayer for Israel in time of war. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, you know that the Jewish people are one nation with one heart, and now that heart is broken. O healer of broken hearts, binder of their wounds, be with our brothers and sisters who have been taken captive, and with the families of the victims. Watch over the hostages, break their bonds, and bring them out from darkness to light. Proclaim release to the captives, liberation to the imprisoned. Comfort the families, bring them under the shelter of your wings.
Bring complete healing of body and spirit to all of the wounded. Bind up our wounds and grant us healing. Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, rock and redeemer of the people Israel. Bless the state of Israel, the initial manifestation of our redemption. Shield it with your care, spread over it your shelter of peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Grace them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend us. Crown their efforts with victory. Bless the land with peace, its inhabitants with lasting joy. Shomer Yisrael, guardian of Israel, strengthen and bless the defenders of Israel, who stand guard on the land, in the air, and on the sea. May we see the promise of the psalmist realized. You turned my mourning into dancing, my sackcloth into robes of joy. God, protect, preserve, and restore peace and well-being to Israel, your people, and together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
So my gratitude for what I'll share with you tonight goes to Cantor Kevin, who shared this teaching that he received this week with me. And what I'll say is that this is really actually something of an introduction, in the hopes that you'll come to Torah study tomorrow, which Cantor Kevin actually is going to teach this more expandedly. And by that I mean because there are a lot of texts involved in it, and I don't imagine we're going to be able to get through all of them. The reason I'm particularly grateful is that this Shabbat, actually, I've been anticipating for a while and struggling with what exactly to say. This is the Shabbat that precedes the holiday of Purim, which we are going to begin celebrating tomorrow night. So those that may know the story of Purim very well, or may know it slightly less well, it is celebrated, at least, again, triumphantly. It is a holiday that for most of the last century, certainly, has been one that most kids look forward to. Certainly I did as a child, because it was purposely joyful. It involves costumes, it involves, wonderful things to eat. It involves a seudah, festive meal. And even for me, perhaps a little bit less exciting to the kids of these days, but I loved hearing the Megillah read when I was a kid. I still love it. In particular, I love hearing my dad chant it. We're lucky enough that Cantor Kevin will chant it for us tomorrow night, at least, our portions of it. But, as you get older and you learn the story itself, you understand that it is a story filled with fear, existential threat, ultimately a threat of genocide against our people, a triumphant end, but one that comes with a tremendous amount of violence, and one that, of course, causes every single one of us to connect to this moment in our history and this time. And truth be told, after October 7th, I sort of internally felt like it ought to be a different year, that we celebrate holidays differently for 11 months, the way that we, frankly, when we lose an individual family member, we're meant to. Right? We still fulfill our obligations, but generally speaking, in the year of loss, you don't go to parties, you don't celebrate, you certainly don't put on costumes and do groggers and things like that, and that's true of many things. But at the same time, Judaism doesn't allow for a complete distancing from that obligation either to be joyful. You can't put it to the side. And I think actually on that October 7th, on that Simchat Torah, as I explained the Shabbat after, I had to stand here and officiate for a bar mitzvah. And I had to somehow or another imagine myself in a positive mood when my heart was broken. This is the tension, of course, of being Jewish. Now, the thing is, we understand the holiday of Purim, again, most of us, because we celebrate the holiday when it begins. But there is something that takes place before the holiday, which is also very important, just much less observed in our universe. Anybody know what that is other than Cantor Kev? Well, it's something that actually we think about usually as doing once a year, but actually in the Jewish calendar many times, which is fasting. Okay, it's called Ta'anit Esther. So Ta'anit Esther is a callback to two parts of the story. One is the story itself. Fasting takes place there because for our ancestors, one of the first responses to calamity, or the potential of calamity, was to fast. Okay? It's not just as a matter of expiation or forgiveness. For our ancestors, it was really also something of a Hail Mary, for lack of a better term, right? A hope that if we fast, if we abstain from everything, if we focus all of our spiritual intention on praying to God with fervent hope, that the outcome of the story will change. And in fact, that's one of the things that happens in the story. Even though God isn't mentioned in the Megillah not once, that idea of fasting, that idea of what they do to try to change the story is significant. But the other reason that we fast is, again, when we realize there is no changing the story, in which it's already taken place, and we fast out of pain, we fast out of acknowledgement of loss. One of the lesser known ones is the fast of the firstborn. So if any of you are a firstborn male child in your home, you may not realize you're supposed to fast before the holiday of Pesach, out of recognition for the fact, again, not our children, right? The children of our enemies die, and we fast in recognition of that to some degree. So herein is a long introduction to what Cantor Kevin brought to me, which is a teaching he attended at Yeshivat Hadar, which for those that you don't know is an excellent, perhaps the excellent egalitarian yeshiva in New York City. And the study was led by Rabbi Aviva Richman, who is the Rosh Yeshiva of Hadar. She's the big cheese, I guess. And the title of it was Reading the Megillah After October 7th. And this was just quoting the introduction, what the hook to the course. Purim parades itself, she says, as the most joyful day of the year. However, Megillat Esther is the story of intense crisis and violence. At the beginning, Jews face an existential threat. And at the end, Jews kill their enemies on a massive scale. In the wake of October 7th, these crises of Purim feel very real, as we mourn unimaginably cruel acts of violence against Israelis, encounter increased anti-Semitism and fear in Jewish communities worldwide, and confront the sobering fact of so many Palestinians killed in recent months. As a day of fasting, she continues, and prayer before Purim, Ta'anit Esther is an opportunity to reflect and to confront these crises. What can the Megillah teach us about understanding and holding together both realities of violence against Jews and violence by Jews? What theological and practical answers can we glean from this story this year, especially about how to respond in moments of deep fear? Now, as I said, I wasn't at the teaching itself. I have not yet had a chance to watch the teaching, and Cantor Kevin is really going to teach the entirety of this, of which there were probably no less than 10 or 15 different texts that are woven together in what I am told is something really powerful. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to instead pick one of the texts that was identified that really jumped out at me, just to show you how complicated this conversation of holding two different truths at the same time, and some of those challenges and how our tradition has approached it. So one of the texts that she brought is a teaching of Maimonides from the Mishnah Torah. It's from a section known as Hilchot HaRotzeach, the section that deals predominantly with the laws of murder, and murderer in particular. So here is what it teaches, and it's complicated, so I'll break it down into a few of the things it's saying. So Maimonides says, whenever a person intends to strike a fellow with a blow that could kill him, the pursued, in other words, the person who is about to be hit, should be saved by, quote, in this case from Deuteronomy, quoting, cutting off the hand. So in other words, not killing the person by essentially maiming them, doing something to them to the effect of making it impossible for them to hurt you again. Okay, and to do this of the rodef is a pursuer. Okay, so rodef shalom, as many of you have probably heard of, or various rodef shaloms all over the place, that is the positive affirmation. Rodef shalom means somebody who literally chases after peace. That's what we're about. Okay, but a rodef in this context is a pursuer. It's somebody who is chasing after you with the same zeal, but negatively. Okay, so in this case, the first act, if somebody is about to be killed, is not to kill the person who's attempting that violence, but to try a step before that, right? Maim them, cutting off the hand in some way or the other. If this cannot be done, though, it says, the victim should be saved by the taking of the rodef's life. In other words, if it's not possible to stop by lesser means, then your obligation is to, in fact, take the life of that person who is chasing you. As the verse continues in Deuteronomy, you may not show pity or remorse. This, indeed, he says, is one of the negative mitzvot. Okay, one of the mitzvahs that tells us what we can't do. You cannot take pity on the life of a rodef who is coming after you to take your own life. So in other words, Maimonides is saying that it is not just acceptable, it's a mitzvah to kill the pursuer who is trying to kill you. However, when a person could rescue by maiming the rodef's limbs, but does not take the trouble and instead saves the victim by killing the rodef, in other words, skips the step of attempting to do something less than death, right? Skips the step of maiming or whatever it may be. Okay, when that person, and again, the choice of words is not accidental here, by not taking the trouble to do that. In other words, not taking some of the risk required, that one is regarded as one who has shed blood and is liable for death. Okay, so in other words, that person who didn't take the extra step of trying to do something before killing the pursuer, They themselves are now responsible for the death. Nevertheless, to make it complicated, that person should not be executed by the court. So they are essentially responsible as a murderer, right? Liable for the death, but the death penalty is not the solution to that. So it speaks again to the conflict of this. Now, whenever a person can save another person's life, but he fails to do so, he transgresses the negative commandment as it states in Leviticus, do not stand idly by while your brother's blood is at stake. Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, one of the most significant mitzvot in the Torah. So here we have a number of complicated issues at hand. And again, speaking to this idea of holding multiple things in place. On the one hand, our tradition says, if someone is trying to kill you and their intention is to kill you, you have an obligation to stop them from doing that. But your first step is to try to do so in a way that doesn't take their life preemptively. And if you don't go through that effort, if your first step is simply to kill them without that restraint, then you yourself are responsible. However, acknowledging that you don't receive what would be the normal punishment of a murderer because there is something else to this. You didn't bring the issue upon yourself in the first place. The pursuer chose to pursue you. Your question, right, the issue at hand is how you responded to it. Now, Maimonides is Maimonides. And for most of our existence since Maimonides, anybody who studies halakha, studies Jewish law seriously, takes this seriously. This is not a side comment by a random rabbi of the 12th century. This is the preeminent rabbi of his time. It is the basis upon which every other code of law has been written since. What Maimonides is pointing to here is the complexity of what it means to be under an existential threat, one in which there is no question about that threat, what the response is, what the restraint requirement is, and what the thought process is, and what the aftermath ultimately results in for those that actually the choice is not even there. Okay? Whether or not, for example, the person who fights back to save the life of the person being pursued, who kills without having attempted some lesser means in the first place, whether they realize that's what they were doing, they carry that blood guilt for the rest of their life. And the conflict as it continues to go on, as I think most of us could have predicted, the longer it goes on, the more complex these feelings become. And as I'm sure most of you who watched, a certain political figure this week call into question the leadership in the state of Israel, and I'm sure many of you are thinking, right, I don't have to make it any more explicit than that. Part of the reason why that is now coming to the fore is because these issues have always been here. They've been here since before October 7th. And the longer that the conflict goes on, and the longer that the war goes on, the more and more these questions will absolutely come to the surface, and they absolutely will become more and more in the public square. Whatever the thought was that it would remain quiet, I think, to be honest with you, was never going to be the case. So the question then becomes, how do we reconcile this? And how do we reconcile this with Purim in particular, right? Go back to the fundamental question that the rabbi is asking, right? Why study this stuff at all? Why make the connection? Is there anything that can be learned? I'm not sure that there's anything from this text or the ones that Cantor Kevin is going to teach tomorrow that will give us some way forward that we haven't thought of. What I think is powerful about it is that it acknowledges the reality that we're existing in now, as our ancestors did then. Of this dual reality of, on the one hand, knowing that we have to defend ourselves, knowing that we oftentimes have to fight in order to survive, knowing that when we do survive, there is legitimacy in the celebration of that fact, and yet at the same time to hold ourselves to the standard that has been the standard from the beginning, which is that we do not run after violence, we do not run after war, we do not run to kill or to maim or to anything. We may respond to it, we may respond to it thoughtfully, and most often with an extra level of restraint that, frankly, most others don't put upon themselves. And it's frustrating and it's hard, but you see it actually if you pay close attention to the way in which the IDF actually fights and has fought forever. It doesn't seem that way from a distance, but there are few battles that I can think that have been fought in the history of warfare, few wars that have been fought in which there is any consideration of anybody on the opposing side, let alone the levels of concern that are often taken and have been taken for a very long time by the soldiers of the IDF. But my concern, as I've said from day one, is that most of those soldiers are young people. They did not choose one way or the other to be fighting this war. They are killing and having to kill, often to protect others without any desire of their own. And they're going to have to walk around for the rest of their lives, one way or the other, right? Even knowing if they save the lives of their friends and their family, are going to have that blood on them for the rest of their lives. And a holiday like Purim, to celebrate it in total joy would be, to me, impossible. And that's why I think Ta'anit Esther actually is really important, and why it's sad that we actually don't observe it and we don't know about it. Doesn't mean I expect next year we're all going to be fasting, but I think that balance between the joy and celebration, really the hyperbolic level of joy and celebration that Purim represents, is balanced by the act of fasting right before it, of considering the fact that even in that joy of surviving what would have been impossible to survive, right? In the story of Purim, we are on the razor's edge of not existing. Okay, to not celebrate coming out the other side would be insanity. But at the same time, to not acknowledge the fact that the story also possesses, again, a threat that we have not escaped, okay, a threat of violence against us from many who desire us to be gone from this world in one form or the other, the need to defend ourselves, which is not the choice that any of us, I think, would make, or our brothers and sisters in Israel would make, and at the same time, to never lose the hope that this story, the story of our survival, is not the only story the Jewish people have to tell. That our existence is not the only story that we have to tell. That the story of Purim is not just about survival. It's also about heroes and heroines in particular. It's about community of people. It's about faith, even in a God who isn't present. Okay, it's about history. And it's about thousands of years of our people finding a way through our darkest moments. That's what the holiday is really about. It's not a holiday to celebrate violence, but it is a holiday that contains it. And if we don't acknowledge that in some meaningful kind of way, if we don't treat it with a seriousness, if we don't consider every big question as seriously as Maimonides treats it in the Mishnah Torah, then I think we are acting, I think, actually, as Rabbi Richmond said, in something of a parade, something of a farce. We're fooling ourselves by putting the mask on. I actually don't think that's what Purim is about. I don't think it's about hiding, and I don't think it's about acting like the world doesn't exist around us. I think it is simply an expression of a people who for far too long have had to question whether tomorrow will come. And when you have the chance to celebrate the fact that it will, especially in a congregation like ours where as of Sunday there's going to be 100-odd kids running around downstairs, that's something that we must celebrate. But we have to keep things in a balance. Okay? We have to be honest about how we're feeling. And we also have to respect the fact that in this room, just guaranteeing you, everybody doesn't feel the same. People aren't going to feel the same on Saturday or Sunday. They're not going to feel the same in Israel as they do here. And we have to stop taking the knives out against each other every time somebody says something we don't agree with. We have to start being a little bit more understanding of the fact that it's actually not as simple as I think we'd all like it to be. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of fear. But at the same time, we are the living embodiments of resilience, the living embodiments of faith. Got to dig deep at a time like this. And so when we are sad, to acknowledge it with reality. But come Saturday and Sunday, we have an obligation to celebrate joyfully. And I hope very much you'll join us tomorrow night. I hope you'll come on Sunday. And I hope you'll really experience that. But if you want to begin the conversation with, again, a certain balance of seriousness, join us for Torah study tomorrow. You don't have to be here. You can join us online as well. And maybe Cantor Kevin and I will work on this together, teach a little bit of this really very powerful teaching. So with that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. My gratitude to Cantor Kevin again for sharing. And wish you all again, really, a Chag Purim Sameach, one of joy. So we'll now rise in body or spirit as we turn back to our Siddur, our prayer book, page 586, at the very bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, Latet Gedula L'Yotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoyei Ha'aratzot, Velo Samanu K'mishpechot Ha'adama, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, V'gor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 591.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
I ask those in mourning, those observing yahrzeit, to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We think first of those who have passed in our community in recent months. Isabel Becker, Bert Bitterman, Julian Busgang, Deborah Fogarty, Richard Gambino, Jerry Goldsmith, Lita Goldsmith, Dr. Sam Gould, Rita Hertzfeld, Jesse Hirsch, Laura Labatten, Sean Leibowitz, Robert Lykoff, Samuel Moskowitz, Jeffrey Nagelberg, James Pappas, Danielle Lisa Rigg, Janice Sambol, Harlan Spitz, Barbara Strasser, Susan Wolfson, Fania Verrett, and David Weinstein. We also mark the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Mabel Barron, Haven Bloom, Jeanette Brown, Lieb Goldstein, Meyer Harris Goldstein, Carol Halpern, Isidore Harkabe, Linda Katana, Gertrude Katz, Larry Crevette, Rita Margaretin, Pearl Meyerson, Joseph Moskowitz, Jacob Ratner, Morris Rosen, Henrietta Sanborn, Gussie Shanker, Sandra Tepper, Michael Warner, and Jason Zaretsky. In addition to those names that I just read, if anyone else is saying Kaddish for anyone we didn't mention?
Richard Hilbert. John Hopkins, Colleen Hopkins.
I'll invite the mourners to join with me on page 500. Oh, sorry. Sure. The mourners to join with me on page 598, and if it's your custom to join them in solidarity and standing, you are welcome to do so at this time. Again, the mourners will join me on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayichon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael b'agala b'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. All right, please be seated. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
And a few very important announcements. The first is, of course, to thank our friends, the Zaretsky family, for sponsoring tonight's Oneg. Again, we know done with a heavy heart, but the fact that, again, you share this moment with us as a community every year, it's deeply meaningful. And we hope that being surrounded by this community will help in those tougher moments, certainly. But may his memory always be for a blessing. Marilyn, Alan, Sarah, thank you. I also want to, of course, remind us all to come for services tomorrow, 10 o'clock. You can join us here at the temple or online. And as I mentioned, please do join us for Torah study. Even if you're not normally a Torah study person, come here, join us at the temple, join us online. Happy to have you. Regardless, you'll go home, you'll take a little bit of a nap, and then you'll come back at 6 o'clock and join Cantor Kevin and myself, perhaps looking a little different than we might right now. But we'll see. Megillah reading, a little bit of Havdalah, and our wonderful catered meal from Saz Indian Restaurant. Reminder again that registration was really essential for that. If you didn't register and you do really want to come. Okay, I'll give you my food. Don't worry. I want to make sure nobody's turned away, especially on a Chag. But we hope you'll join us 6 o'clock again. And then on Sunday from 3:30 to 5:30 here at the temple, our Purim Carnival. Really important again. Kids are there. They like to see adults dressed up. Even if you put a little something silly on, just do that. It will make them very happy. So again, you can join us for all sorts of activities. And also still Purim lunch bags, matanot le'avyonim for our Sag Harbor Elementary kids. I understand, I know there is some challenge this week, I think, paying for certain things on the website. Checks still work, people. You can still send in checks if you want to pay for things. Sometimes that's preferred because then we don't get knocked for credit card fees. So don't worry, the old school things still work if you run into that problem. But the reason why that's important also is you should have gotten an email about our congregational Seder. So if that also, we do have a limited space on that one. So if you're thinking about coming this year, please do sign up. And if you have any questions, anything like that, call me this week. We'll talk about it. But that is going to be second night of Pesach, Tuesday, April 23rd at 6 o'clock. Also, a reminder, very important, Cantor Kevin, as we mentioned, is he's growing up. He's going to leave us soon, but before he leaves at HUC, he is going to offer his senior recital, which he is preparing for intensely, and is going to be really amazing. It's April 10th at HUC in New York City. It's open to all for just the recital, but as a special treat, they've also built, HUC has built a special kind of programming for the day around it, where you can experience a day in the life of a student at HUC. So if you come, you have to register for it, but you can come at 9:30 for a coffee reception. You stay for tefillah, which is a great opportunity to pray with the students at HUC. And then at 10:30, Cantor Kevin will offer his senior recital. And then there's lunch and a learning opportunity with some of the faculties from HUC. And apparently cookies are involved. So all those good things. Again, Wednesday, April 10th. But if you're interested in coming, I'm going to send the email out this week with the registration. You just have to make sure that you register. Cantor, you want to give a 10-second explanation of what you're doing with your recital here, if one can do?
Yeah. So the topic is Shabbat Zmirot, literally just Shabbat songs and Shabbat music. So the entire idea and point of my thesis was that this isn't something that the Reform world does so frequently, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for more communal singing and more engagement on a musical level outside of a service specifically. So somewhat singing a little bit more for the sake of singing and for the sake of Shabbat. So the recital itself there'll be people sitting around tables, there'll be some food on the tables. It's probably going to be pretty packed, so we'll see how many people we can get around the tables. But there's going to be a lot of communal singing involved. I've got a small choir that'll be joining me. There'll be lots of instruments, and it'll be a chance to also get to hear the entire Debbie Friedman School of Sacred Music cantorial program getting to sing together. So we don't get so many opportunities to do that, and so I'm grateful to be able to provide an opportunity for us to all get to do that together.
Absolutely. And I'll just say from experience, if you're coming primarily for the recital, there are jitneys that will get you into the city with enough time to get to HUC without a problem. So if there are enough of us that are interesting, we could go together, try to make this work. So I'll send that information out this week. We'll see what we can do. In the meantime, we'll enjoy every opportunity we have to hear your voice, Kevin. So how are we going to conclude our service tonight?
With the exact way that I'm going to close the program.
Oh, I like that.
For
very nice.
My senior recital.
Very nice.
A piece that's very, very common from camp also happens to be connected with Megillat Esther. So La Yehudim Haita Ora V'Simcha V'Sason Vikar Ken Tiyeh Lanu. So the Jews enjoyed light and gladness, happiness and honor, and so may it be for us. So that is on page 640. And everybody at the recital will be finishing singing this together. So, again, page 640. La Yehudim Haita Ora V'Simcha V'Sason Vikar. La Yehudim Haita Ora V'Simcha V'Sason Vikar. Ken Tiyeh Lanu Ken
That's going to sound amazing.
With all of the, yeah.
Absolutely. We'll turn to page 123 will rise for Kiddush. Again, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam bohorei v'riagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu. V'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon enchilanu. Zikaron le'maaseh bereishit. Ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh. Zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta. Ve'otanu kidashta. Mikol ha'amim. Ve'shabbat kodshecha. Ve'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. Do motzi and we'll go next door. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom. Please come next door. And thank you again to the Zaretsky family for sponsoring tonight's Oneg. Eat double.
I really do love that. No pets. Yeah. Rabbi now, I think. The rabbi on pets.
Really?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
Who
sure.
ordained him?
Did you see it, maybe? I think he was always a rabbi. I don't remember.
Huh.
No, I know his grandmother, his mother, I think it was his mother, went through an ordination process as well. I think he might have always been. I'm not sure.
No, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great thing. And it's going to come out of a piece of like chazanut.
Yeah, it's just.
So it's going to be kind of like a surprise sound.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It'll be,
Oh, that's,
so
really,
like,
that's really cool.
It should, it'll transition very smoothly.
That's really great.
Assuming everything goes well.
Look,